Hi and welcome to Indigo Starfire. My name is Bevin, and in this video I'm going to be looking into the question, who's headed your way and what do they want to say? There are three groups to choose from. Group 1 is the Stichtite. Group 2 is the Blue Lace Agate. And group 3 is the Petrified Wood. So if you want to take a moment to center, focus on your breathing, and feel whichever group, maybe multiple groups or perhaps all of the groups that you're most drawn to, I'll give you a minute to make your selection and then we'll get right into it. And there are timestamps in the description box of the video for each group if you would like to jump ahead. And up next is a close-up photo of the crystals to help you better make your selection. Hi, Group 1. You chose the Stichtite. So I'm just going to be using oracle cards for this reading. We'll start off with looking at who's headed your way, get into what they want to say, then I'll pull some message cards directly from their higher self and close it out with some initials. Okay, we have Eye of the Needle, intentionality. Deep Diver, diving into a task. Caterpillar, opportunity. Wish upon a star. Ears wide open. And into me I see. So there's an energy of some kind of psychic connection with this person. They themselves may be quite intuitive. Perhaps this is someone who's a water sign, Pisces, Cancer, or Scorpio, somebody who you've been at a distance from, it feels like, almost for some period of time, where you may be struggling to kind of keep up hope of their return, of renewal in this situation. This may be kind of, if it's been a back and forth situation with an individual, a long time that the two of you have been estranged from one another. It's bringing to mind almost the idea of like navigating by the stars. So some kind of personal quest each of you have needed to go through, somebody that you've gone into a period of prolonged separation with, where it's like total radio silence, total no contact, and you've undergone some deep personal journey of healing and empowerment. To where it's almost like you were a very different person from when you were last interacting with this individual, to where it almost feels to be sort of, you would need to re-meet one another, that there's a lot more that has kind of been excavated or brought up from sort of this internal landscape that is now more apparent, more on the surface. So definitely a situation where you're standing in more of your authenticity, and in a way that this person maybe in the past had encouraged you to be more proactive, more precise and intentional with how you were living your life. They may have been someone who was a little bit critical of you and your lifestyle or choices that you'd made. Maybe they tried to provide some sort of like helpful or constructive criticism or suggestions, but it almost came across really jumbled, sort of a difficulty of having a meeting of the minds, to where it may be sort of this prolonged period of time where you're in separation, like you didn't end on the best of terms. You may have heard about them through the grapevine over a period of time. The idea of even sort of like seeing people maybe as you're out and about that kind of remind you of them, maybe other people you've encountered subsequent to this individual. that carried a lot of those same characteristics. These can be physical attributes or, the idea of kind of a series of psychic or deep emotional sort of connections that, in a way, mimicked what you had with this individual, but have never quite been able to go as deep. Nobody's quite precisely been able to sort of fit into your life or even kind of trigger you as deeply as this person has. And it may really be this sort of vice versa kind of energy that the two of you are kind of almost like oil and water, really drawn together, and yet at the same time, at least in the past, have had difficulty finding that common ground, finding that middle road between the two of you. You may definitely resonate with this idea with into me I see of this person as your counterpart, your twin flame, for example. There may be like geographic distance between the two of you. It may even be something where your dealings with one another were primarily, online, or this may be somebody who likes to travel, travels for work, or has, moved to another country. You've moved to another country to where, again, it's like navigating by the stars, almost moving from sort of shore to shore with an ocean separating the two of you, this perhaps being kind of a block or an obstacle or challenge by way of the communication in the past. It may also be where there was sort of like a language barrier or even sort of a profound age difference between the two of you, where colloquialisms and kind of turns of phrase and even sort of your interests or your points of reference, it was very hard to sort of find that middle ground. It's like you were both sort of referring to things that was just, it was not resonating, or it was not within the scope of kind of understanding, that you kind of almost, the idea of like a generational gap between the two of you. So this may be like a substantial age difference, to where it's sort of like the way in which you grew up. So the circumstance and the environment, culturally speaking, globally speaking, when you were, kind of a child and moving into adulthood, it was very different from sort of the exposure and the environment of the world when they were growing up, and kind of what were the trends, what were sort of the happening things of the moment. This can also speak to very profound kind of cultural differences between the two of you, where there was some kind of common ground here. Since it's a love reading, obviously there was some degree of romance between the two of you, but it almost feels to be something that's kind of like an odd couple, or like opposites attract sort of energy here. But then beyond sort of the honeymoon phase, beyond this kind of bubble love phase, as you were sort of coming back down to earth and getting to know one another more on a human to human level, kind of bringing that higher self connection down into the 3D, it was very apparent, at least in the past, that a lot of these material differences between the two of you, that these were substantial. These were roadblocks and obstacles, almost in terms of like your core nature or makeup within one another. Maybe even very sort of different lifestyles or very different goals you had for the future. Some point of contention as far as, that distance. Maybe even if you're living within the same country, you may have had sort of financial obligations elsewhere, family obligations elsewhere, work obligations elsewhere that kind of tore you apart or kept you in these separate corners and directions. And it was very hard to sort of evolve beyond that, like a deadlocked kind of energy here, to where time has passed. It's almost like you've tried to move on. This person's tried to move on. You've both kind of gone through this personal change and transformation, and yet there has remained this deep, almost intuitive or psychic connection between the two of you. You keep sort of sensing one another's energy. A lot of telepathy going on in this, a lot of sort of empathic energy transference between the two of you, almost without, it feels, you may have even kind of had these points in time where you got this sudden urge to kind of reach out to them or to look up and see what they're up to, sensing almost points of deep distress, like SOS signals coming from this person. But there's almost this energy of they were so remote or so removed from you or so inaccessible, or maybe you were inaccessible, that this is a situation where all you could really do is send that loving energy from afar. And almost this seems like a situation as well in your kind of hour of need. This person really could have stepped up to the plate, energetically speaking. You may or may not have been able to get very precise with like the idea of eye of the needle. as far as the direct source of healing energy or loving energy or sense of protection and comfort. When you're scared, when you're, dealing with a lot of heaviness, when you're not well, when you're really sort of down and out energetically speaking, or maybe even at different sorts of points of peril or turmoil in your life, in your experience that were very unrelated to this person, you feel them kind of come around you in this protective sense, energetically speaking, but without this real sort of ability to exactly pinpoint down that it's them, but just a sense of kind of like they're still around in some way, they're still tapped in, you're still tapped in, but it's a lot that's kind of unspoken between the two of you. This ties in as well with kind of this heart here, or the star over the heart chakra. So a heart chakra activation or awakening may have been one of the sort of signs of this person, almost when the two of you went your separate ways, and you initially might have thought, okay, this is just going to be a breakup like everything else. This could have really catapulted or pivoted you, and it feels like this person also mutually, but in kind of a different way, like mirrored in an alternate sort of path. They may have really been exploring things in terms of the material world, or trying to outrun some kind of heart chakra activation and expansion, where you may have sort of dove a little bit deeper into that, explored a lot of the subtleties and nuances. Maybe this put you on the twin flame path, put you on a spiritual path, had you sort of questioning the nature of self, the nature of energy and all of that. And as a result of all of this, as painful and difficult, as a period of separation or whatever had kind of driven you both in other directions, or in opposite directions, it feels to be something that largely you've come out different and better through the experience. So this feels to be something almost, and with this idea of the star here, this could be an Aquarius that you're dealing with. Aquarius season may have been sort of relevant, and it's almost kind of this idea of like a New Year's resolution, a new you kind of an energy, where you've undergone some kind of profound transformation in this situation, to where it really would be almost having to like reacquaint with one another. This person in and of themselves may be kind of a mysterious or secretive person as well, with this idea of kind of the cat here and the caterpillar. Also that idea of kind of moving from the stage of the caterpillar into the butterfly. So personal transformation, phoenix from the ashes sort of energy. And it definitely ties into the idea as well that, unlike in all kind of situations of heartbreak where we love someone and then that love kind of falls apart, there's a necessary period of time of sort of putting our pieces back together. But this feels to be something that was definitely next level. It almost may have had kind of an atomic effect on a lot of different areas of your life, to where it wasn't just, okay, I'm gonna heal and recover and rebuild myself as a result of this disappointment in love, but it's kind of like no area of your life was untouched through what was profoundly awakened within you by this person. And it almost feels to be something where you didn't really fully appreciate what had happened or the nature of the exchange until they were sort of removed or remote from you. And so it also feels like with this group that a lot of you are probably, you've in some way sort of transcended a lot of triggering, even at the idea of this person coming back in. It feels like this has not been the first go around of sort of feeling the anticipation. Okay, they're coming back. You've been watching readings. They're coming back. They're on their way in. They're headed your way, only to have them not turn up, or if they've come back before. It almost feels to be something that it's been very difficult to sort of transcend the need for sort of separation between the two of you. That at one point in time you may have had some kind of goal of 3D union, and it's been almost just not the proper fit between the two of you. Like things, you may have had sort of these different spurts of reconnecting with one another, only to sort of separate and go your individual ways again, go deeper, do some more personal healing, roads bring you back together, or somebody reaches out to the other, and it's almost sort of this process of kind of like a back and forth energy. But it feels like you, for the most part, have kind of transcended that. You may have set really good boundaries, like the eye of the needle. It's gotta fit precisely in this way, or I'm not gonna participate in this anymore. And it may be something where you've really you've let this person go. You've listened to your intuitive knowledge. You've learned to kind of love yourself and to really sort of detach from this situation and set your sights on other horizons, or in some way, or at the point in your journey where you're redefining how you understand even the dynamic between twin flames, that it's not always meant to be this like romantic 3D union, but that the fundamental kind of core principle of a twin flame experience or twin flame connection is this energy of profound personal change for two people on a soul level. And then whatever manifests as a result of that, whatever both of those individuals choose to do outside of that journey, like in addition as well to that journey into self, there are many different possibilities as far as what that can be. And it feels like you're, for the most part, at that stage right now where you come to a place of peace and acceptance that, you know, in this particular lifetime, if this is something where you just need to kind of love each other from afar, you know, and sort of go your separate ways, that this is something that it's not, you're not acting as if in the hopes that it will like bring this person back around, or because that's kind of what people in the spiritual community, you know, encourage, of like, you got to detach if you want union. It's something that almost, it's reached a landing point within where you really have come to this place of peace where whatever transpires in this situation, you're committed to your own personal growth. You're sort of looking at the situation with a bit of gratitude. It almost feels to be kind of neutrality here, not deeply triggered by the idea of their coming back in, not leaning into this principle of, I've heard this all before. It always says that they'll come back and they never come back. This is the energy of somebody who's beyond that, like people who have kind of gone beyond that. And it's, you know, to almost, in and of itself, maybe even as you're listening to this reading, you may be really recognizing that this is the first time perhaps that you're touching on that idea and you're not feeling yourself deeply viscerally triggered, or kind of agitated by that idea, either deeply sorrowful or kind of angry about that. And it can really be this indication in real time in this moment, whenever you are watching this video, that you have really transcended to the next level, or you've kind of reached a milestone in this situation. This might be that kind of intersection, that point of recalling kind of the bigger purpose of the journey that you're on with this person, which it feels like is really tied into the idea of kind of what's bringing them back around. There's this energy here, you know, and it's going to be different for everybody. Definitely with the idea of kind of intuition and ears wide open. It ties into the idea of like read between the lines. You know, just because you've endeavored certain processes in your personal transformation, you've reached certain milestones. You know, you're linked with this person at kind of like a soul level, an energetic level, an emotional level, despite everything that's happened and despite kind of going your separate ways, or even time being a factor as far as having not, you know, reconnected with one another, or where you've really just kind of closed the door to the situation. It almost feels to be something where it's not a guarantee that they are necessarily on the same page as you, that they have reached that place of peace. It's possible for some of you that it's, you know, you really have sort of up-leveled to the next stage of your journey. Maybe the next stage of your journey is kind of going to be, you know, seeing this person in kind of their reimagined form and really having that mirrored, recognizing within like areas that they haven't worked on within themselves, things that, you know, they have accomplished and what they still need to do, and that this may kind of template for you where your next direction is headed, whether this is you rekindle a friendship with this individual, or whether this is something that, you know, it's kind of that final goodbye. It really sort of solidifies for you that mission accomplished with one another in terms of this activation, this personal growth and kind of self-love process. Or for others of you, it really can mark that time where, okay, the formula's right this time around. And that's not to say that anything won't interfere or get in the way in the future, but it's almost kind of the ability to sort of go deeper with one another, or a different kind of experience. And on some level, you're both transformed, or you've transmuted, you've worked in tandem with one another, and it's your part of the process of kind of detachment that is almost calling this person back in for another sort of go around, it feels like, in a slightly different, which again, that will be relative for everybody, how slight that difference is, a different sort of energy, some sort of cycle that has been transcended, either within each of you individually, or that's possible with the two of you together. And that this almost marks an occasion for those individuals who continue to follow through on this wave of momentum here, and, you know, they're headed your way. if they continue moving to that point of intersection, and on many different levels, it can represent kind of the closing out of one cycle and the beginning of another for each of you individually, or the two of you very jointly. For other people, it's kind of, even just this reading will sort of change your trajectory. It'll change your focus, which then affects kind of outcomes or the results of the situation. And for still other people, because free will is a factor, this is almost like with the best intentions, but maybe you've kind of literally outgrown this person. You've done more work. They're only able to sort of reach you so far, but it can be that indication of like, okay, they're still relevant energetically speaking. They're still perceiving or cognizant on some energetic level, maybe even kind of like watching from afar, seeing your growth and progress, and they kind of almost make it to that finish line, but aren't necessarily at that place in their journey to have the stamina to really reach you or reach out. So it's going to be different for everybody, but let's see what they want to say. Okay, so we have the Star Daughters. Dance. I dance, sing, and play with my sisters at sunset. The Ruby Star. Flow. I embody my authentic and sensual essence. The Cosmic Enchantress. Wishcraft. I attract a steady flow of abundance. The Red Spring, well-being. I am vibrant. Mama Kicha, collaboration. I flow with life and life flows with me. And the Isle of Glass, sovereignty. I shine my light of wisdom. So there's some interesting kind of like mirroring here, this idea of like wishcraft and wishing upon the star, so again, kind of a mirrored journey between the two of you. This can really speak to the idea of their communication. It is with the intention of restoring hope or providing you with some kind of evidence. It feels like even with these two mirrored energies here, we have, the ruby star, this kind of red energy, and then we've got the red spring right here, almost sort of that you have not been alone in this process of personal transformation, in this journey. This may be things that they are getting ready to admit for the first time, with this idea of like Ace of Swords here, on this Isle of Glass. Also that idea of mirroring, kind of the looking glass energy. It speaks to, transformation, either internally speaking or externally in their material world, in their circumstances, and wanting to really bring you up to speed with that, or the sense of they've closed out certain cycles. They've seen the light, or they've been diving really, really deep here with the idea of kind of this underwater scene here that also mirrors the idea of the deep diver and diving into a task. And it also speaks here of collaboration, so wanting to work with you, maybe even own their feelings that in the past they had denied, or to work with you to try and salvage, rebuild, maybe even start small, with kind of this idea of the Six of Cups here, with sort of these children in the Star Daughters card. Start small, rebuild the friendship, get to know one another again. Definitely whatever they're wanting to say, it feels more to be a declaration. It's like apology informed of change, in the form of changed action, or something that just may be so different energetically speaking. They may really radiate this energy of sort of calm strength, being very rooted and grounded and comfortable in sort of their own skin, this kind of red energy, root chakra. They may have really made some profound changes in terms of their lifestyle. Any addictions that were a factor may have really been mastered, or they're on the road to mastery. They've gotten these things under control. aspects of lack or financial matters, things as far as their living circumstances and kind of the image that they were putting out into the world, how they're living their life. A lot of these things may have changed in a very positive way. It's the idea almost of somebody who's very sort of, they're in a state of comfort with kind of who they are and have maybe come to a point of not as deeply comparing their journey or their life to other people. This may have been someone who was very tied to the opinions of others, how things look from the outside, someone who was very just sort of focused on material pursuits and acquisitiveness, wealth-oriented energy. Not that there's anything wrong with wealth, but it feels like it was almost at the expense of kind of emotional well-being or matters of the spirit, matters of the soul, somebody who is almost just kind of laser focused on, I need success, I need money, I need this title, I have to have a certain lifestyle in order to feel that I've made it, or feel that I'm kind of a worthwhile or valid person. Struggles that they may have had in really kind of achieving a certain level of success may have also been something that, again, kind of pulled them away from the connection, eroded their self-esteem, brought forth issues as far as unworthiness is concerned, all of that really being kind of cracked open and transmuted in a way to where their priorities and values may have changed. The way in which they're making their money may have changed. They may be in a totally different career. They've gone back to school. They've opened their own business. They've left the toxic dead-end job and they're doing something else. Maybe they've started some kind of creative pursuit, or they're just, they've carved out more space in their life for immaterial wealth, experiences in life, kind of prioritizing the company they keep, the value of time shared, giving back, giving to others, being very conscious of sort of how they move through the world. Maybe this is somebody who is now kind of volunteering their time or donating, even kind of money and resources if they don't have time to necessarily donate or invest in things. Or it's the energy of being more mindful, more careful about how they move through the world, or even and in addition to that, it feels something where their relationship with self has really changed. Something that they want to say or demonstrate is almost, they've cracked open the nut, they've cracked the code as far as what that means to love oneself, which can be so full of subtlety and nuances, and it's kind of everybody's version of what that looks like is so different, and it's kind of something where we can get caught in this tangle of comparing, what does my self-care and self-love journey look like compared to what applies to somebody else, kind of the surface level aspects of that, the emotional aspects of that, the kind of physical or spiritual aspects of that. It feels that this person has really, they've explored kind of the outer realms or the outer boundaries. They've gone beyond just the surface of what self-care and love and self-love means. They may have changed a lot of things, or just even a perspective about themselves. If this is something where they were holding on to a lot of lack, maybe even having a sense of like an imposter syndrome, or not feeling worthy and deserving of a beautiful life, feeling that they in some way needed to accomplish or achieve something before that door was open, or that possibility was open for them, or that it was something that was kind of a worthwhile investment or endeavor. It almost feels that their opinions about that, their views about that have changed. What they're filling their life with has changed, and it's a desire to share that with you. Again, kind of something it feels for most of you, what's calling this person back in, it's more than just curiosity on their part. It's stemming from almost something energetically that's gone off with them, like a radar system has gone off within them based on what you're doing on your own personal journey. It may really serve as confirmation that, again, with all of these kind of mirrored energies here, if you're questioning, is this my counterpart? What does that really mean? What's the bigger purpose of this principle of like a twin flame journey? This is it. This is that bigger principle of sort of two people coming together to exchange energies, and then, collaborating with one another, energetically speaking, in these times of distance, in these times of separation, in order to, cultivate kind of that balance within self, becoming the yin to one's own yang individually first and foremost, so that they're able to, come together and kind of have this more expansive partnership, something beyond just mundane love and romance. And so it almost feels to be not even consciously, but just an energetic draw that they're really compelled to you to sit at this point in time to sort of say, you're not alone in this process. Maybe you needed that bit of confirmation, that sort of restoration, that star on the horizon that encourages you to continue walking that path, or to explore deeper in the subtleties and nuances of what that means, what this connection with this person means for you, what it means for each of you individually. Something where there's almost this idea of like exchanging notes or comparing notes with one another, seeing sort of where do these changes match up. It was coming forth that there was in the beginning that there was sort of this energy of having difficulty kind of meeting in the middle, and a lot of that really it felt to be kind of these core structural qualities of kind of how the personality's built, sort of that question between nature versus nurture, and kind of the environment that they grew up in, things that were templated within them, maybe like family wounds, or instances of kind of lack or issues with self-esteem, or how their experiences in love and partnership in the past had sort of distorted their view of things. Any kind of age differences, cultural differences, all these things where there may have been a lot of obstacles or a lot of points where you weren't necessarily intersecting on that 3D level. And so this feels to be something where substantial changes have happened within the two of you, that now it's almost, there's been this creation of a new sort of middle ground, something that wasn't able to be explored before because it was uncharted territory for the two of you. You each had to kind of come to this place very individually through different routes, and you've now reached kind of this promised land of some aspect, or kind of a different point of like, okay, we can connect with this, we can make these pieces work or fit together a little better than they had in the past. So it definitely feels to be something where they're coming forth in more of an energy of confidence. If they were kind of stressed out before or uncertain before, very fearful of what the future of the situation could hold, what was possible between the two of you, what they should or ought to do based on, kind of conditioning within them, it feels that they've transcended a lot of that. And so what they're wanting to say is almost in a roundabout way, kind of, you're not alone in this journey and process. I too have kind of rebuilt myself from the ground up, and you may be at different sort of phases of that process. So again, for some people, this is just going to be a checkpoint. For other people, it's like these pieces fit together. You've created this sort of other energy outside of yourself. You've created this almost new identity, or new sort of way of being and moving through the world, that where there were these incompatibilities, or these areas where it wasn't fitting with one another, now there's an opportunity to really explore something different. Like maybe in this way we can find enough of this sort of tangible, real world, and even energetic common ground that it helps to sustain more of a unified connection for longer. And whether that's just something that develops into a friendship, or you're starting small in that capacity, and rebuilding from there, it feels like if this person was very kind of like impatient before, or very just sort of gratitude oriented and kind of like on to the next, they come forth at this point in time with a lot more peace and patience that has been cultivated, where it's really 6 of Cups energy right here. I want to move toward harmony. I want to see if we can make this work, but let's take our time. If it moved too quickly before, let's go slow this time around. Let's really take the time to get to know one another, and begin again, or see sort of where we can go from here. A curiosity as well, with sort of these energetic cues they've been getting, or things that they've observed about you, maybe that they've seen on social media, or like they've heard from the grapevine, with this, ears wide open, if you know people in common, that this may be something that it's really kind of drawn them out of hiding. It's brought them in from this energy of being kind of adrift, away from you, adjacent from you, kind of in the shadows, just observing and feeling energetically, but not speaking some sort of truth. So it's almost kind of they're satisfied with their own personal journey and where you're at in your journey, that it's the idea of like, it's time to reconnect. I'd like to sort of get into closer contact, to explore this version of both of us, and see if what wouldn't work or couldn't work before, maybe this time the odds will be more in our favor than they were the last time. So I'm going to get some messages from their higher self and see what they want you to know at this time. Okay, and they say, I constantly feel you running through my veins. So that is that confirmation of that energetic connection between the two of you. Distance, physical distance, time, these are man-made principles and constructs of the third dimension. This connection right here, this person that is heading back around to you, it feels like, this is an ancient bond. It predates even the creation or the conceptualization of time, to where a part of you is always linked with one another. There's this open channel of communication despite obstacles, despite distance in the 3D sense. And so it's the idea of kind of even death not separating the two of you, that you're both highly tuned into one another at all times. And it may be something that they really ran from that, or it was very overwhelming for them in the past, and kind of the growth and evolution, almost a sense of groundedness or rootedness that they've created for themselves, maybe ways in which they've expanded their spiritual knowledge, or that time has really served this situation well. The transformations that have gone on with both of you individually have allowed this person, it feels like, to hold this energy and be a container for that and a conduit for that in a different way than they had before. They've worked to clear a lot out within themselves, and so there's a better, and you've worked to clear a lot out within yourself, so there's an easier sort of flow between the two of you, where it may have been kind of chaotic, or that energy collided with a lot of sort of blocked channels that were sort of stuffed with fear, rather than allowing the current of love to flow freely. And they also say, my whole body burns at the thought of you. So more of that energy exchange between the two of you. Kundalini energy, healing energy that is exchanged back and forth. The idea of phoenix from the ashes, two phoenixes from their own kind of personal fires of transformation and metamorphosis, rising to the occasion within self, really showing up for self, really kind of taking, whatever that looked like for each of you in a parallel path kind of manner. Different things that you've really needed to work through or work on or work beyond. It feels like this can be that confirmation, or just even this energy, this whole idea of like coming towards you and demonstrating this, saying this by way of their energy is different, their life is different, the way they communicate, the way that they are able to lean more into this connection, or even kind of taking steps to migrate in your direction, rather than continue to remain distant or kind of cloaked or hidden. It indicates the profound transformation which has taken place within them, and kind of then ultimately in sort of the channel of what's possible between the two of you. They also say, forgive me, I've never felt this way before. I do not know how to act. So again, this idea of the energetic intensity between the two of you, and this really could have pivoted them off in another direction. This can talk about a lot of sort of hot and cold energy, or sort of runner chaser that has been the case between the two of you, maybe a long sort of history or a long cycle of this sort of experience with one another. And this is new territory for them. It's this approach, it feels like, what they're coming towards with you, this energy that they are in. It's more, it's like they've gotten down to the root, down to the core, maybe work through some pretty substantial blocks within themselves. They're understanding something within self a lot more. They're loving on themselves a lot more. They're devoting to kind of like healing and healthier choices. All of this really affecting sort of their capacity to receive and work with these energies between the two of you. But it's still something that it's like, even the idea of connecting more directly with you at this point, even that is unknown territory. So it's the idea of like, let's start slow, let's start small, so that this doesn't become overwhelming and kind of trigger the two of us once again. They also say, I can't bring myself to open up and let you in. So there may have been some fear of commitment, or even fear of abandonment, feeling that the situation in the past or the energies between the two of you were too good to be true. This may be something that they really have been working on, this idea of opening and becoming receptive to abundance in a lot of different ways in their life, of, opening up to the abundance of love as well. That might have been an issue in the past. The idea they didn't feel good enough, they didn't feel worthy of the love you had to offer, or healthy, high vibrational love in general. They may have chosen, sort of these lower vibrations or more shallow circumstances. or even if there weren't third parties involved, it's the idea of even kind of material pursuits or success or status or image, based upon kind of the lens of comparison to society or people within their culture, people within their family. This was kind of what they were prioritizing as of true worth and value, worthwhile pursuits in an earthly existence. And it feels to be, it's the energy here of they've opened up beyond that. It's not that like, okay, they're not pursuing success and money and status anymore, but they may have reached kind of a level where they've redefined that, or they've carved out more time for themselves for something else, to prioritize something else, or they found that in sort of an unconventional way. Maybe they are in a totally different career at this point in time, and what had been sort of an elusive success, something that was always out of reach, now is coming to them very easily, because they are in a state of flow. They are in alignment with like a higher calling, or kind of these true interests or skills or gifts within themselves that they could have really stuffed or suppressed based on what other people would think about those choices, or that particular career path. And they also say, I'm afraid if you touch me, you will destroy me. So again, kind of this fear of commitment, fear of intimacy that may have been an issue in the past. It does feel to be something that, although they're coming towards you, they're not afraid, but they're moving very delicately. Kind of once bitten, twice shy, or however many times bitten, and however shy they are now at this particular point in time. It feels to be that they have done some work within themselves to transcend maybe where they were putting the blame. It's you're too intense, this is too much, you're putting pressure on me, whatever that excuse was, or that reasoning or rationale. And it's sort of like, okay, something within me was not open to receive, or couldn't really work with this very well, kind of operating with the tools they had at the time, but they cultivated some new tools for themselves, and are now able to sort of understand, it feels like, their limits or their triggers a little bit more, and so are coming to you in a very practical energy. It's a very peaceful energy. It's almost like a quiet confidence here, sort of like, we don't need to rush. When we've rushed or been careless in this situation before, it's bottomed out, it's unraveled between the two of us. So let's take things slowly, so that we're both kind of crossing these checkpoints within ourselves and with one another, so this circumstance has the ability to kind of evolve into something more grounded this time around. And they also say it's like we're star-crossed lovers. Will we ever make it work? So more confirmation there of that star energy. So definitely something that kind of the stars are coming into alignment, or, efforts that sort of you have made in your world, in your reality, have substantially shifted that kind of skyline of what's possible, or the idea of just sort of the probability or the practicality of taking steps forward, creating movement in this situation. Something to where this could have really, this situation, as much as it may have kind of cracked you open to spirituality, questioning things on a deeper cosmic or subtle level. This can be that confirmation of this person also sort of thinking in those terms, thinking outside of the box for how can we make this work? If this has been a situation where you've attempted to sort of reunite and it's just been a collision with one another, there's the idea of wanting to move toward a horizon that it's going to take some time to build in that direction. And so kind of moving very carefully, but very consistently in your direction. So I'm going to get some initials. This can be a first, middle, or last name, or it can spell something out, just whatever resonates for you. Got S, O, T, P, E, T, G, R, U, M, I, G, C, H, E, N, Z, X, and D. So those are your messages. I hope that they resonated with you and that you enjoyed the reading. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, or share. If you'd like a personal reading, I offer them through my Etsy shop, and there's a link in the description box of the video for that. I offer a variety of pre-recorded video readings, written readings, and channeled letters. Turnaround time on everything is 5 to 7 days from the time of purchase. I also sell handmade jewelry, dream catchers, and sun catchers if you're interested in checking any of those out as well. And I've launched a second channel here on YouTube, which is called Lady of the Dawn Tarot. There's a link in the description box as well as in the channel section of my page for that. The format over there consists of readings related to topics other than love and romance. So if you're looking for something a little different from me, that is the place to find it. I thank you for your support there as well as for your continued support here on this channel. I hope to see you again in another reading. Please take care and be well. Hi, Group 2. You chose the blue lace agate. So I'm just going to be using oracle cards for this reading. I'll start out by taking a look at who is headed your way, then what they want to say with some other decks, and I will get some higher self messages from them and close it out with initials. Okay, we have the Uncharted Sea, Sacred Reverence, the Land Between, Feast of Plenty, Choices and Their Consequences, Vanishing Mirror, Ego Sublimation, and the Farther Gate, Bold Step Forward. So this is definitely giving off the energy of kind of like a secret admirer or somebody with whom you do not have any kind of romantic history, romantic past. So it's possible it's somebody that you're already kind of seeing or talking to, but it may just be in like a friend zone, kind of like on a platonic level or in a coworker fashion. And so since this is a love reading, they may be kind of headed your way with love on their mind. Love has blossomed, feelings have blossomed within, and there's a desire to sort of explore this in some manner. This feels to almost for some people, a lot of people, there's distance between the two of you. Now, this can almost be something where maybe this is somebody who has just seen you online. It can be something where it's so remote in terms of direct personal contact. Interestingly, there are no people, there's no human beings in any of these cards here, save for kind of these hands. And so it feels to be something where there may be kind of barriers at this point in time to physical interaction between the two of you. So this may be somebody who's getting ready to reach out online, if you have like a public presence, public profile, an algorithm may have recommended you. You may have common friends, or you're following the same people, or they've seen you, they've taken note of you in some way, they've kind of come across you. They've been watching, they've been kind of studying, or just almost very kind of captivated with the idea of sacred reverence. This isn't giving like creeper vibes. It's the idea of very drawn to you energetically, very curious, like I'd like to get to know this person better. Definitely a lot of attraction, kind of the blossoming or budding of feelings. And the idea here with vanishing mirrors, kind of a window of opportunity. Maybe in some way they're aware, they kind of have a feeling you might be single, you might be available, but this may not always be the case. Or it's a sense of kind of how they've encountered you in whatever that sort of arena or facet is, that you could easily kind of not be accessible in that manner. So it's almost time is of the essence, or they've kind of run out of reasons to sort of sit and wait, to watch from afar. This doesn't feel like the energy of somebody that earlier today they came across your profile on some social media app. It almost feels like they've either been following for a while, you've been on one another's friend groups, friend list, if you have social media presence like a public platform, they've been watching whatever content it is that you put out for a period of time, and it's been drawing them in closer, both whatever the nature of it is that you put out, a lot of kind of common ground here, so some sort of shared interest or beliefs, even with this idea of kind of these two Ace of Swords right here. It's the idea of not necessarily blocked communication, but a direct conversation that has yet to take place. But something to where it's almost they're recognizing, kind of with the Feast of Plenty, that you would have something to talk about. This wouldn't just be somebody kind of coming out of left field and approaching you in a very sort of unexpected manner, although because you don't recognize who they are. They've got eyes on you, that for you it would be very much like, okay, who's this person? But for them it's almost based on whatever this kind of common ground is between the two of you, that they know how they're going to lead. It's the idea of wanting to come in very sort of on a neutral ground, to present themselves as a safe space, to not move too quickly in your direction, not overwhelm you too quickly. Kind of this understanding that you may or may not be receptive. It may take a couple sort of passes in order to really get the message home, sort of that they come in peace, or what their intentions are. The idea of somebody who's not going to lead with like an overly sort of romantic introduction for fear of kind of being blocked or discarded, or in some way not taken seriously. So they're almost planning kind of an intellectual approach is what it really feels like here. If this is something where maybe this is someone you know through a mutual community, somebody that is in a class, for example, there may be a school connection between you. Somebody, if you work in kind of a large, corporation, there's hundreds or even thousands of employees. They may have seen you in that capacity, but you don't necessarily know one another directly. Maybe you smiled in passing, or you've exchanged hello, but it's very little as far as like the words are concerned, where they're wanting to really approach, to kind of create this bridge between their world, between who they are and who you are as an individual, to start to establish more common ground. Again, something that they're drawn to energetically speaking. It may be something that, and this almost feels to be something where it's sort of a fine line, where they may be inclined to sort of start with the line of, I don't usually do this. I don't usually reach out to people in this capacity, or I don't want you to think that I'm some kind of creep or weirdo, as kind of part of their introduction, or sort of their disclaimer when they're coming towards you. But very validly, that almost feels to be something why they've hesitated up to this point in time, is sort of like, how do I approach this person and not come across as a walking red flag? And so they're taking their time here, but also recognizing that they can only sort of sit on the sidelines for so long, that whatever this is that has kind of struck them, or sparked them, or really intrigued them, maybe it's your mind, it's the way you talk about things, something that you put out, or it's even just this intangible something about you where they're just very drawn in. There's almost this idea of, there may even be kind of like a past life memory between the two of you, some past life experience where it's just, this person feels so familiar. I feel so drawn to them. I, feel kind of energetically magnetized to this point. I want to get to know this person for sort of reasons unknown, and kind of fighting that to some extent, because it's so sort of unexplainable, or there's no sort of substance to that. It feels like really there's been no amount of conversation in this nature. For some of you, again, this could be, like a friend, somebody that you've just been dealing with on like a superficial level, or it almost feels if it's a friend, it's somebody within a larger friend group. So there may not, it's almost like then in that case, they're wanting to come forth with more one-on-one time or exclusivity with you. Or it may be something, it almost feels to be, like a class, a yoga class, a pottery class, a cooking class, something of that nature. Maybe you're the one giving the class. Maybe you're both students in this class, and it's almost the idea of that you've caught their attention from across the room. Or maybe this is somebody in like a college course with you. Night school even is coming through, where they've heard you speak. They've heard the way your mind operates, how you work, how you think, and there's a desire to sort of transcend the limits of that connection with one another, and sort of this idea of this isn't going to last forever. Like the semester's going to end, the class is going to end. What if this person just doesn't come back one day, or we graduate, or whatever the case may be, to where this is almost sort of like they're moving in your direction, but it's the idea of it's grounded, it's with a sacred energy, it's wanting to come forth in a safe space. Based on kind of the nature, this dynamic, again, this uncharted waters here, sort of they don't necessarily know how to approach. They're putting a lot of importance upon this, because it's almost sort of that first knock on the door, that bold step forward. This determines sort of the course of how you'll receive them. That first impression, they're putting a lot of weight upon this at this particular point in time. If this is somebody who is, again, like in your physical environment, although with this energy right here, it feels like there's been very little exchange, so it may or may not ring any bells as far as who this could be. But they feel to be somebody who's very introspective, almost kind of like an introvert, maybe a little bit of a wallflower. Very kind of grounded presence, not someone who necessarily blends into the room, somebody who really holds space but is almost very stoic, and yet they've got this emotional core. Very intense eyes is coming through, that even if there's somebody who's very still and in place, there's a fire in their eyes. There's a lot of kind of intensity and depth there. There's a lot of intellectual depth to this person. They're very sharp. They're very intuitive and logically minded, almost the idea of feast of plenty. They're wanting that seed of potential, that first bit of communication to amount to something, to yield something in terms of a long-term sense. Building these bridges between how you are knowing of one another. Maybe there's, they only know of you in the case of somebody who's seen you remotely, or seen you from afar in kind of a larger circumstances. Can even be somebody who lives in your neighborhood, lives in your community, sees you regularly at some kind of store that you go to, some kind of coffee shop, restaurant, cafe, any of that. And again, it's this idea of there's no guarantee that this person won't move, that they won't just all of a sudden come in one day, whatever that particular scenario is, to where it's almost they're watching and they're observing and they're very much drawn in with the sense of curiosity, but really understanding that it's kind of like it's going to take some time for us to build to the place where it almost feels like they don't necessarily even know how to explain how they're compelled to you. This isn't like, oh my gosh, I have all these feelings for this person. It's more of like a curiosity, but definitely something in terms of attraction, like within the heart space, within this idea of surface wise, they find you very attractive. They find you very pleasing to the eye. Energetically speaking, there's something that really sort of has piqued their interest in whatever sort of way they've been able to commune or deal with you even, or listen or observe you. There's whatever they've gleaned in that sense has really intrigued them, and it's creating this urge to sort of move in closer, kind of like this could have kind of a key or some sort of potential, this action that they're it feels like getting ready to take. They may be very close to it, on the brink of this, actually, kind of like any day now. They've built this bridge, and they're just getting ready to like take that leap of faith and say, hey, could this possibly develop into something? Is this something where we can take things to the next level or start to get to know one another? It's almost like a plan that's sort of set in motion, and they're in the process of kind of, it feels like moving through any sort of not even a lack of confidence within themselves, but this almost feels to be something where, again, the nature of your dealings with one another, or how they are needing to approach, maybe even just the brevity of contact, if it's somebody who's directly in your environment, like let's say it's somebody at the coffee shop, they go to the same coffee shop you do, they're a customer at the same time you are, they work there or you work there, whatever that's like. There's a sense of like a very small window of opportunity that if they don't get it out and get it out right, that it's kind of, you may say no thank you and kind of walk away, and there goes that opportunity. Then they're going to have to, but it also feels logical to where they're anticipating that it may take a couple of tries or efforts to sort of really establish themselves or set themselves apart from the crowd, or to really garner your attention, that you may respond or react to them with kind of a sense of guardedness, a sense of leeriness about kind of, okay, who is this that's approaching? Because it's virtually a stranger, or even just something where, if they're kind of in a coworker setting, like a large sort of office or corporate setting, for example, or something within sort of like a school setting, and the nature of kind of what's going on there, that it may be your mindset is not necessarily, hey, I'm looking to partner up with someone, I'm looking for love and romance. There may even be kind of a lack of information. Are you single? Are you available? Are you seeing anyone? This is something that, they need to move in closer. They're wanting to open those lines of communication, and have kind of thought about and have anticipated many different possible scenarios here, but it's almost that they can't continue to move forward without, in their life, not that, if they don't take that leap of faith, that they're kind of just stuck in place, but it's something that's really compelling them forward. Like, I need to know, I need to move in closer, I need to at least make the effort, because I'm very drawn to this individual, and that maybe this is something that could develop into, a deeper exploration of these feelings. Maybe the recipe's just right, or my delivery will be just right on, this chemistry that they sense or that they feel towards you. Maybe this will be reciprocated. And so rather than somebody who will just sort of linger with a lot of unanswered questions, this feels to be somebody who, they embody a lot of almost like the beginner's mind. They may be kind of a young soul, or somebody who just really, they're in a place of confidence within themselves, or maybe just in the stage in their life in general. They're very carpe diem. They're very seize the day, seize the moment. This is somebody who doesn't want to live with a lot of regrets, doesn't hesitate, is not irrational, is not impulsive. They're very almost like methodical, grounded, observant. But then when they see something that intrigues them, this isn't someone who's just going to kind of slink away and sort of chew on that ad nauseum and never do anything about it. So let's take a look and see what they want to say to you. Okay, we have Athuja, Sun Goddess, lift off. I open my senses to feel delicious pleasure and passion. The Visionary, awake. With an intuitive perspective, I see the bigger picture. Goddess of balance, equality. I create and foster reciprocal relationships. Mother of the ocean, inner child healing. I go within to feel whole. Baths of Aphrodite, nourishment. I bathe in the sacred springs of love. And Goddess of the sea, storm. Through the storm, my inner sea is calm. So interesting, we had that uncharted waters, and then we've got the energy of the sea here again. So this really speaks to kind of this churning, this sort of back and forth, where they've really been planning, they've really been sort of weighing this out, they've been observing for some point, some period of time, really kind of soaking in your energy, taking in this experience of you, this impression that they have of you. And it's the idea of kind of awakening something, creating something, lighting that fire, sparking that inspiration of, hi, I'm whatever their name is, and whatever that next kind of follow through would be, that kind of point of delivery, something that it almost feels to be kind of this Two of Pentacles energy right here, sort of like, is this reciprocal? Can we get some kind of conversation started? Can we find more common or middle ground between the two of us than is already the case? Or expanding beyond sort of the conditions of how you exist to one another at this point in time, which in the case of somebody who's like a secret admirer watching from afar, this can definitely be kind of that introduction, just making you aware of who they are as a person, so that sort of this back and forth, almost from a safe distance though, can occur. It's like they're moving towards you, but not sort of bombarding, not rushing forth, honoring kind of your need for boundaries, but also the fact that this is kind of uncharted territory, uncharted waters. It doesn't feel to just be a cheesy pickup line if they were to say something like, I don't usually reach out to people, I don't usually do this. Like, genuinely, this feels to be something that it's out of the ordinary, it's atypical for them. Even if they've been kind of attracted or drawn to people in whatever that same or similar venue is to how they've kind of come upon you, it doesn't feel to be anything they've really acted upon before. It may just have been kind of an admiring energy, and then circumstances took people in different directions, or just sort of fizzled out and faded, but something is really kind of compelling them to this point of curiosity, action. It may have even been missed opportunities in the past and sort of course correcting this time around. Now that somebody has caught their attention, caught their fancy in this way, they're wanting to take action rather than have this be sort of the regret or the idea of what if. The idea here as well with the inner child healing, and that idea of looking at the world through the child's eyes, the beginner's mind. And so what they want to bring forth to you is something that is almost like Ace of Pentacles energy, Ace of Cups. It's like the little, or even Page of Cups, the little fish jumping out of the cup in the Rider-Waite deck. This idea of they pop up very surprising, with this kind of crisp energy, with a very innocent sort of energy, so as not to startle, not to alarm you, not to kind of raise any red flags for you, but definitely with unmistakable energy of, it almost feels to be where they're not just going to want to dance around the issue. They're not just going to want to have you wondering sort of, what does this person want? What are they trying to get at? What's their aim here? They may start off very kind of business or surface level, but it feels to be something where what they want to say, they quickly want to kind of breathe life into that situation, to sort of lean more deeply into these questions about, are you single? Are you available? Do you want to get to know one another? Do you think we may, have some kind of compatibility? Again, this idea of prepared, it feels like that there may be rejection, there may be pushback, there may be guardedness within. They're kind of like battening down the hatches for some kind of storminess, or the idea of this might not necessarily be a smooth or linear path, easy access to kind of this deeper tranquility, or what's possible in terms of exploring these emotions. So it's kind of like working with what they have, and taking the situation further than what it is up to this point in time, which, even if it's somebody that's in your kind of material reality where they're going to be approaching you face to face and directly, there doesn't really feel to be that substantial of a foundation, or any foundation between the two of you at this point in time. So it's really a building from scratch. It's following their heart, being very compelled in your direction, answering that call from their heart. It feels to be something that, in a very delicate way, they do intend on touching on that. This idea of, I feel so drawn to you, I feel so fascinated by you, you seem so familiar, you seem like a very interesting person, a very dynamic person. These are not things that they'll just sort of keep to themselves. It's almost as this interaction, the nature of this conversation, or like a series of conversations, evolves between the two of you, this feels to be something that they fully intend on kind of broaching that, not just wasting your time. That it's almost something where kind of it feels based on the nature of who this person is, that they've mapped out some sort of strategy, but this isn't going to be where they become a pest, where they just won't get the hint, they won't get the clue, and they just keep knocking on the door even though you're giving them rejection, and you're not reciprocating. They put some kind of an expiration date on this. These are the efforts I'm going to try. This is sort of the approach that I'm going to take, and with a certain series of kind of responses or even reactions from you, there's a certain point in time where they do intend to sort of withdraw if nothing is accomplished, if nothing is achieved in this situation. But there is a hopefulness that some progress can be made, some headway can be made, that maybe this kind of draw or attraction, when they become prominent or introduce themselves into your world, into your reality, that this will be mutual, that this will be reciprocated, that this is something that a connection can be awakened, that it can be built upon, that this kind of getting to know one another from a safe distance will lead to the idea of more closeness, more intimacy, but it's something that they're preparing, that this could go many different ways, and so it's the idea of bringing forth authenticity, truth here, but at the same time not bombarding the situation too quickly with kind of this idea of, I feel so drawn in your direction, you feel so familiar. This person feels very conscientious of the fact that they don't want to come across as trying to feed you a pickup line, or trying to run game on you or anything like that. But at the same time, they also are very sort of aware and worried. It's like a back and forth energy, like how much disclosure is too much, because they also don't want to come across as somebody that's just curious about you, or they definitely feel something more than, they want to be more than friends. And so there's kind of this fine line of not wanting to come in and get trapped or friend zoned. So sort of like how quickly to turn up the heat on this situation, how to progress, kind of different sort of responses or reactions, then opening the door to other ways in which they've already kind of planned or mapped or sort of thought about wanting to progress the situation. So kind of getting to the point, relatively speaking, quickly about, I find you attractive, I find you interesting, I want to get to know you more, I want to get to spend more time with you, to see if this spark, if this compatibility, if this is real, if it's mutual, if it's reciprocated, and kind of if this is something that can be built on from that point. So I'm going to get some messages from this person's higher self and see what they want to tell you at this time. Okay, and they say, I'm taking my time. We have all the time in the world. So that confirms the energy of somebody being very patient, very methodical. They're not trying to rush in this situation. They're very mindful of the fact that based on the nature that they're coming through basically as a stranger, somebody that you may be familiar with, just in terms of you've seen them in passing. It may be something where that hasn't even registered with you. That's a possibility as well. It feels like in this situation, for some of you, this could be someone that's part of like a larger friend group, although that feels to be, this mostly feels like the energy of somebody who knows of you, who sees you, and you are unaware of them in the physical world. You don't know this person. And so it's the idea of they need to move carefully towards this. They need to approach the situation with delicacy, not even caution, but it's delicate to kind of cross that threshold from, I'm this anonymous person, I'm a stranger, to, I'd like to start to develop something or build something here. And they also say, I'm so sorry for not giving you the time and attention you deserve. So this is really speaking to me about that they may feel that they've been sitting on the fence or kind of waiting to approach for a while. It ties into that idea of kind of with the vanishing mirror of a fear almost of time running out, some element within them that is kind of coaxing or encouraging, or maybe even just sort of bringing forth this kind of reality that if they don't make a move, if they don't open that door to possibility and potential, then they may never know. It may become a missed opportunity. So it's almost that they didn't give you this direct attention or make themselves known sooner than whenever this is that they're going to approach and kind of insert themselves into your world. They also say, I cannot handle any more heartbreak. So aside from just being very kind of cognizant of not startling you, not setting off any kind of alarm bells or presenting as a red flag to you, this also really ties into the idea of their approach, this very kind of, we need to take this slow, or I need to take this slow instead of kind of rush forward. It may be that they're very sort of cautious about who they're in relationships with. They may be somebody who's older, or they're just at a stage in their life where they're seeking quality versus quantity. And so they're very precise with sort of who they move toward, with the intention of, I feel something stirring within the heart space, within the emotions, and I want to explore this more. This is somebody who's kind of reached a level of self-mastery, even though they have this kind of beginner's mind, this optimism about them, where they've learned from their mistakes. This may be somebody, that's very emotional almost, and when they love hard, and when their heart's broken, it hurts very deeply, deeper than most. They may be a very sensitive person, a very empathic person, to where they've really sort of learned to kind of curb this instinct to just sort of leap before they look. They're now kind of in the stage of their life, or in this situation of like, I need to honor sort of my need to sort of sit and watch and observe and really check in with self. Is this feeling still here? Has it faded away? The fact that it's kind of still there and maybe even growing, this draw and this fascination and attraction, that feels to be what's compelling them forward to the point of making contact. They also say, love isn't always on time. Please be patient with me. So more of that energy of wanting to take things slow. Again, they've been aware of you, been in your world, been in your reality for quite some time, it feels like. If this is somebody that you have some kind of work or school connection with, it almost feels that, you may be sort of at the process of wrapping up. Well, it's maybe you're in school at this point in time. It's a timeless reading, so whenever you see this reading or these messages and they apply, please take that accordingly. But I'm recording this in the month of August, and so I think most schools, unless it's a year-round school or adult classes, that are just kind of sporadic, sort of traditional college or undergrad, upper grad kind of things, and postgraduate, we're right at the beginning of school starting. Maybe for some of you, you've already begun the school year. So this could be something where maybe this is someone you had classes with last year, last term. Now here's this opportunity again. They're in contact with you again. This could be what's coaxing them to make that move. They've had to wait all summer. They've had to kind of sit there and think, okay, well, what if I don't encounter this person again? Maybe you're getting close to graduation, sort of like this is the final opportunity. Somebody who may have been, in a lot of those same courses with you, but you've never expanded beyond that. Whatever the context is, it's almost they're reaching a point within themselves of the time is now. It's not going to get any better than this. They thought about this, they've strategized, and they're getting ready to make that move. But again, very, very deliberately, sort of the slow roll towards you with a lot of different options or kind of possibilities of sort of how they'll present themselves in the moment, what they'll say, or what that response is going to be based on your reaction or responsiveness to them as well. And they also say, all I've ever wanted and needed is you. So in this context, since it's most likely a secret admirer, someone you don't really know very well or at all, this is really tying into the idea of that they're very drawn to you, very attracted to you. It's this kind of mysterious energy that they feel about you, this sense of fascination that may be compelling them to really step outside of the box of how they ordinarily are approaching people, venues in which they ordinarily don't approach people. This can be somebody that normally doesn't approach people in this capacity online, for example, and they're breaking that rule for themselves and reaching out, hoping that you'll read that communication, that you'll sort of give them the benefit of the doubt, that you'll be open to sort of exploring or getting to know them. And they also say, you are always safe with me. So confirmation there of the idea that they're very cognizant about not kind of crossing the threshold of any kind of triggers within themselves. They're cautious about who they open their heart to, but at the same time, they want to make you feel very, very safe and secure, that this is, a person that comes forth with good intentions, that this is somebody of integrity rather than something that you would need to be kind of cautious or wary of. And so with that, it's the idea of that sense of safety, that sense of trust. There's a recognition that that is built very gradually. So this is someone that's coming in with kind of a long-term strategy here. It may start off very kind of surface level, but there's this full intention to elevate that to where you're not sort of, a year into the situation. Well, what were their intentions? What do they really want? Are they ever gonna get to the point of sort of what that motivation was? This is someone who is gonna fast track a lot quicker than that if this is something where you're receptive to that, but they're really wanting to sort of start at square one, establish kind of a safe space and get to know one another. They have kind of this future potential, but at the same time, they're not so linearly fixed on an outcome here, that it's possible that as the two of you connect and get to know one another, you may not be compatible. It may not work. It may just be kind of this, they've taken that leap of faith and they've honored that element within them that was saying, don't let this pass you by. It's very unknown and they feel to be open to that, but at the same time, they've got a plan of action as far as goals that they would like to experience or an area or arena they'd like the connection to develop into between the two of you. So I'm going to get some initials. This can be a first, middle, or last name of you or this person, or it can spell something out, just whatever resonates for you. Got I, U, X, Y, H, F, V, C, M, B, F, P, C, Y, K, N, D, O, S, and W. So those are your messages. I hope that they resonated with you and that you enjoyed the reading. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, or share. If you'd like a personal reading, I offer them through my Etsy shop, and there's a link in the description box of the video for that. I offer a variety of pre-recorded video readings, written readings, and channeled letters. Turnaround time on everything is 5 to 7 days from the time of purchase. I also sell handmade jewelry, dream catchers, and sun catchers if you're interested in checking any of that out as well. And I've launched a second channel here on YouTube, which is called Lady of the Dawn Tarot. There's a link in the description box as well as in the channel section of my page for that. The format over there consists of readings related to topics other than love and romance. So if you're looking for something a little different from me, that is the place to find it. I thank you for your support there, as well as for your continued support here on this channel. I hope to see you again in another reading. Please take care and be well. Hi, Group 3. Chose the Petrified wood. So I'm just going to be using oracle cards for this reading, and I will start by taking a look at who's headed your way, then we'll get into what do they want to say. I'll get some message cards and close it out with initials. Okay, we have Crown Games, right use of power. Lost Compass, getting back to integrity. Dances on one foot, balancing act. call of the muse, and just a minute here. Little issue on this card as far as clothing. So let me just cover that up there. We've got smoke and mirrors. And endless possibilities. So this is really tying into the idea of somebody that you were dealing with before that was either very non-committal, very undecided as far as what they wanted out of the relationship. This could have been somebody who was juggling you and a third party, trying to keep their options open, almost sort of like leaving or disconnecting from you in the connection, in the thought of maybe the grass is greener elsewhere. This could be something where they've gone back to an ex-partner, maybe due to some sort of sense of shared obligation, duty and obligation, maybe tried to make it work for the kids, or there was some sort of like family or social pressure to try and work things out. It's maybe somebody who has a history of kind of codependency or toxic partnerships. They may have displayed some of this, or this was kind of the case between the two of you in the dynamic, sort of a push-pull dynamic, a little bit of a runner-chaser dynamic here. A lot of sort of promises not kept. Words not necessarily corresponding with actions, or a sense of just mystery, not really knowing what comes next, a sense of when you were dealing with this person in the past, maybe there's been a few cycles of back and forth, and almost when things got to be very comfortable between the two of you, they'd run again. Something would be very triggered, something would kind of, you get into the deeper layers of intimacy and connection with one another, and it pivots them to want to disconnect, where there's a lot of frustration. You may have been really kind of questioning as well, sort of each time they come back around, or even the idea of when they come back towards you this time. Are they serious this time around? Have they made their determination? Have they made their decision? For some of you, though, this almost feels to be the idea of sort of enough is enough kind of with this person, that this may be somebody coming back towards you, that it almost serves as vindication for you, that you've already sort of moved on or detached, or you've really come to the idea or the understanding, and maybe several cycles of sort of round and round, back and forth, promises not kept, potential things going well for a while and then sort of bottoming out again, that this person is just, they've got some deeper healing that they need to do. They've got some things they need to work through, or you've really sort of upped the value on yourself in terms of your self-worth, in terms of what you recognize now that you are worthy and deserving of in terms of a reciprocal partnership, to where it's almost like, if they follow through with that, it almost feels that it may be very predictable that this person sort of goes through a cycle. They sort of disappear, they fall back into old patterns and habits, but like every 6 months they resurface, or like clockwork, you can almost anticipate kind of like the change of the seasons. There they are again. A sense of, they'll be back, they'll come back around. You've been through many cycles with this. You're seeing through that illusion. You're kind of seeing through the energy of it's unfair to you, to where this almost may be something that provides vindication for you. It's the closure that you need. It may even be kind of the abrupt rejection that sort of clues them in. If you'd been very accommodating, very willing to work with them, if you'd kind of fed into that illusion, or really believed, they may have come on bended knee with all these promises, all these intentions, maybe even some progress that they had accomplished in terms of things that were standing in the way, issues and aspects within, and you made some progress, things started to be good. Maybe you agreed to kind of go to counseling with one another, go to therapy with one another, work on things, or they had something to demonstrate in terms of, this is the change, this is what's taken place. Maybe they've set better boundaries with a third party, they're co-parenting in a little healthier of a way, or if this is something where they were very non-committal, or there was outright kind of infidelity in the situation that they have presented in the past in this very apologetic energy. Things have been cut off, that they've kind of closed that out. They're done with kind of their wandering ways, and they're ready to settle down. And a sense of that you may have almost given this person multiple opportunities, and at a certain point, enough was enough, to where it really represents. For some of you, this might almost be kind of a feeling of, it feels sort of heavy. This is not like a giddiness, like, oh good, this person's coming back around. That there's almost just this, they've kind of conditioned you into a state now of not being able to fully be comfortable in the situation with them because it's so unpredictable. When are they going to panic? When are they going to run? You're starting to really see sort of the bigger pattern at play here, that, this is almost a situation that it may really require you sort of responding in a different way in order to break out of this cycle, in order to clue this person in. Maybe you'll be the first person that, rejects them in this manner. When you've said yes, you've taken them back in, you've given them the benefit of the doubt. This time around, you're kind of called to this sort of other path, this other route. You might be ready with that kind of rebuttal when they come back, or you might be very prepared. You've made that commitment to yourself. You may have even sort of cut off communication or blocked this person already, to where it's like, I'm not going to participate in these games anymore. I have recognized my value and worth, and that I deserve more than this. I deserve better than this in terms of a connection, where this can be the closure that you need. This can be that sense of vindication, or almost something, it feels like work you may have done within yourself since you last separated from this person, that has really, you've taken your power back in a lot of ways. You've healed. You maybe have addressed some issues within you that had kind of been mirrored in this situation, or that this person's behavior and actions was a reflection of some wound within you that you were needed to take responsibility for and kind of heal and work with, sort of detaching from the idea of maybe putting so much of your happiness or contentment in the hands of another person, or if you'd projected a lot of the blame, that it was all sort of their fault. That they were kind of operating in this very low vibrational energy. Not that it excuses any of this. Feels like very kind of like complicated, almost like Seven of Swords energy, just a lot of trickery, like somebody with leading a double life almost, or just very unwilling to commit. They keep their bags packed, not able to follow through on promises. This may be something that kind of ripples out in other areas of their life in general. They may just have a lot of sort of instability, kind of person who burns a lot of bridges or lets a lot of people down. There may be a certain core group, though, that lets this quality about this individual slide, and you may have really been part of that core group over a period of time, or dealing with them. But it almost feels to be something where you've taken back your power by saying, I didn't deserve to be treated like this. I didn't ask for these circumstances. This is not okay, and it's not acceptable. But I recognize my own worth enough to know and to see that, I need to set the bar higher. I need to look deeply within and say, what part of me has in some way, permitted this kind of treatment, this kind of situation in my life for as long as it has been, that it's almost like you've redirected that focus on self. And that this may be where, you've detached from this person, and all that's required is kind of that final act, them coming back around like clockwork, and your response this time being very different from how it has been. They may be very unbeknownst to them that the communication is blocked. You're not interested. You've sort of charted a new course for yourself. You've grown. You've developed some new tools. You've introspected the value you place on kind of, directions your life is going to have, the endless possibilities, this restoration of hope, that as difficult as this situation in romance has been, that this need not be kind of the predictor of the future, that you've been able to kind of break yourself free from the cycle. And it's kind of like, this person's the last to know. So for a lot of you, they're coming with the energy of kind of love and romance, but it feels like in some way what their actions are, it's a reflection of some sort of, unhealed kind of element within themselves, something that they almost are not dealing with. They're not taking personal responsibility. They're just sort of going through the motions in a sense of hurt people. Someone who may not really kind of take a lot of personal responsibility, or be very aware of this. It's they may have really been placated or enabled by a lot of people. Nobody's clued them in. Nobody's kind of put their foot down. They kind of just leave a trail of heartbreak in their wake. Nobody is beyond the point of redemption, though. Everybody can make that decision to change and to grow and to evolve, and can kind of look in the mirror at their own sort of BS, basically, that this fits that scenario, that this person is kind of needing a wake-up call, and you may serve as that wake-up call, it feels like, for this person. So while they're trying to kind of bring you back into the loop of the same kind of situation that you've been in with one another, round and round, it's almost kind of like a very different response is sort of waiting for them, on the other side of that, which it feels like, the big thing here is that this is almost an act of self-love and liberation all at the same time. And it may be something where, in the heat of the moment, based on sort of what you've done at this point in time in your own journey, to really look at the situation from a different perspective, kind of get off this merry-go-round, get off this ride with this person, or to really understand that they are obviously not changing something, or this doesn't feel to be where there's been betrayal once and it's like they're circling back around. This is like a round and round energy. You've been through this cycle with this person several times. You're hip to their game now. The smoke and mirrors, you see right through it. You see the pattern that's at play, or kind of where they're vibrating at. And so it fits really beautifully actually into the idea of a love reading here, because it's a demonstration of, this is an act of liberation from a cycle which may have been keeping you kind of stuck or stagnated in terms of your ability to move toward healthy and reciprocal partnerships. Closing the door, you rejecting this person, you not responding to this person, you giving them a very different energy than has been the case historically. That this not only, it feels like, it checks them, it clues them into something. It almost sort of, it stops them in their tracks of kind of this merry-go-round that they've been on with you. But more importantly than that, regardless of kind of what they choose to do, or to dive into and to heal within themselves, it's quite possible this could be like a narcissist that you're dealing with, even, where nobody again is beyond the point of like redemption and change, but it feels to be whatever this is kind of deeply ingrained, deeply entrenched pattern of just kind of moving from one thing to another. And so the act of you kind of breaking yourself free from that, this is sort of a very profound step. And for a lot of you, this may be a first step, a very crucial step in the direction of self-love. Maybe, your response to this person this time around pivots you on a new path for yourself, where the possibilities are then endless. Sky's the limit from that point, because you've chosen to sort of disconnect from the toxicity, to not play these games or be a participant in this manner, to kind of, dance your way toward another situation in the future, dance your way into a more deep relationship with you, to start to ask those questions. This may be something as well where you felt very bonded to this person at the soul level, but you're almost seeing very, very much through kind of that illusion in a sense, and starting to recognize or may recognize, at this kind of point going forward, or sort of when this person comes back around, that this may not have been kind of your highest good or your soul that really called this person in. This could have been some sort of unhealed wound deeply buried within you that was kind of, in a subversive way, calling forth and bringing in other experiences, that you were feeling a resonance, but it wasn't from a high vibrational place. It's almost like trauma bonding here in a sense, and some kind of a higher perspective here. Something that really, it's like putting all the pieces together, and this opens up a new expansion, a new horizon, as far as more deeply understanding yourself and kind of things and shadows that you're dealing with within you, and then how that sort of unhealed or unchecked things within self, how that tends to kind of manifest or be mirrored in terms of outside dealings with other people, kind of like the vibration you're radiating, calling in sort of a a like frequency of distortion in a manner of speaking. And so it's almost, it's a very empowering energy in kind of this sense that this person almost comes forth, and it's kind of the idea of like, okay, bring it, because I'm done with this. This represents kind of the breaking free of this cycle. This represents me finding my due north in another direction, seeing through the illusions, no longer willing to kind of participate in this energy of a back and forth, a higher call, the call of you, the call to back to self, is really kind of a major theme here in this situation with this person. So let's take a look at what they want to say. Okay, so we have the star daughters. Dance. I dance and sing and play with my sisters at sunset. The awakener. Rise. Out of the ashes I rise like the golden sun. The cosmos. Ascend. I connect to oneness and expand my awareness. Baths of Aphrodite, nourishment. I bathe in the sacred springs of love. Goddess Dewi Sri, fertility. I embrace wisdom, joy, and prosperity. And Aphrodite and Aries, lovers. I follow my heart. So interesting, we've got this energy here of dance, and here dance is on one foot, that it's the same song and dance that they have brought to you on more than one occasion, or what has been kind of a repeating cycle or pattern for you, that this person is coming back around with kind of big promises, and yet it's almost the idea of an emptiness with that. It's something very out of touch with the idea of kind of, you know, it's these big promises, but things that it would be a stretch to reach that, or this understanding that it looks really good on the surface, but sort of tangible, tactile kind of things that they've worked through, things that really matter at a core level, that there's something lacking there. It's kind of this disconnect. You know, this idea here of the Six of Cups as well, and kind of this childlike energy. And with the lovers, it's the idea of, you know, I've made a choice. I've made a choice that you're the one I want to be with. I want to invest in this. I want to pour back into this relationship. I want to revive or resurrect this connection. I want to rise from the ashes. I want to do the right thing. I want us to grow. I want us to get beyond this. That same song and dance here. You know, I see a lot of potential. You're the person I want to build a life with. I want to marry you, you know, just whatever that looks like for your particular circumstances and situations. But it feels to be something where you've heard all of this before. It's just almost a different way of putting the same kind of repeating themes, or the same kind of promises that have been made in the past. And so again, it's the idea of kind of, you've outgrown this, or you're seeing from the bigger perspective, the idea of like rise and ascend. You know, you're already kind of maybe anticipating this person's return, or you've made this commitment to yourself of, I'm not going through this again, and sort of you've made this internal commitment. But it requires, almost for you in a sense, not that it requires that, you know, you can always detach without kind of the need to confront anybody, or to you know, directly sort of deal with anybody in that sense. It can just be sort of, you know, your silence can speak volumes. But this almost feels to be something that You've been anticipating their return, their kind of revival of this situation. This is something that they've done this before. This is not the first time something like this has happened, that you've been in kind of this, almost for a lot of you, it feels like a very specific third party situation. It's you and like an ex, you and another person, and this individual keeps dancing back and forth, and it's like, enough is enough. I'm ready to move beyond that. I want something more for myself. Romantically, energetically, in terms of consistency, in terms of commitment. And it almost feels to be something it's very out of reach for what this person is able to provide, that they bring a lot of honeyed words. It looks really good. It looks really romantic. They may show up with flowers, or, maybe again, like for some of you, down on bended knee, kind of groveling almost, please take me back. It may be very emotional, may even be sort of theatrical, or you're seeing it as this because you've really dealt with them. You've been through this cycle. You know this person's pattern up to this point in time. Maybe they are wanting to just be very controlling, or they could be somebody that is just a very indecisive person. But the bottom line is that it almost feels to be where you've reached a precipice within yourself and your own journey, that you're done with this situation. You've already outgrown this. Both of these energies here as well, with kind of the cosmos and ascend and the awakener and rise, you're clued into this, that this is not healthy. This is not something that's in your highest good. You're wanting better for yourself. You've already chosen better for yourself. So it's almost something where it's like, maybe you need that element of closure for you to be able to just not respond to this person, close the door in their face, give them a piece of your mind, have a conversation. You've got some kind of speech prepared, whatever that looks like for you. But it almost feels to be something your sights are already set on. I'm not doing this anymore. And it's not the idea of even an empty sort of, I'm not doing this anymore, and then repeating that phrase over and over again in this ongoing kind of merry-go-round energy, that it's almost something has been like awakened, or you've come to this recognition within self, or even this next interaction when this person turns back up, and kind of the way in which you're leaning into, this is how I'm gonna receive this time around, that it's very different from what you've done in the past. You may very much surprise yourself. It may be a very freeing experience, and it's almost the idea of it doesn't really matter what they say, because you've heard this all before, and unless they have some kind of like real substantial change, like profound personal transformation to demonstrate, it's the idea of you're thoroughly done with this situation as it is at this particular point in time. So this group might not be for everybody. There are two other groups to choose from that were very different energies from this. This feels to be a very specific kind of series of situations, but it's coming through. So it's for somebody, or it's for a group of people that are really at this point that need that kind of confirmation, or that sense of validation, that their inclination, they're looking to other horizons, endless possibilities beyond what they've kind of been enduring, or what they've been put through in kind of a round and round cycle. That's who this group is for. That's who this reading is for. So this isn't for everybody in every situation. This is a very kind of specific sort of segment of details here. But again, it's this confirmation that almost the truth will sort of set you free if you feel the need to speak your truth to this individual when they turn back up. It feels very likely that they're already on that kind of wheel. They're already making their way back around. So this doesn't feel like the energy of an if they come back. It's almost when they come back, that you've been doing this dance with one another round and round, and it's just sort of a matter of time. You may be using this time very wisely this time around. You've been healing, you've been growing, you've been looking within, you've been purging and processing this and understanding kind of for your own well-being, for your own salvation. It's the choice here is really love of self, which is to detach from the situation, to break free from this situation, and for some people, this is kind of like, this is a major act of liberation, a major act of self-love, to kind of break out of this, what feels to be kind of a toxic situation with another individual that may have gone on for quite some time. But for others, it's almost further down the road, there's a possibility that maybe this person gets the clue and they actually go do some healing. Maybe they go to therapy even. They figure out some of these issues within themselves. They get the wake up call, they get that clue, they get that recognition. Your action may kind of spark the first domino in sort of what leads to a profound tower moment where they have no choice but to really self-reflect and kind of look within to heal that wounded part within them that then wounds other people through their actions. Or, even just this idea, if it's not like outward sort of juggling you and another person, this may just be, somebody that's really fearful of commitment. And it's the same story. I'm ready to settle down. I'm ready to give us a try for real this time. And then things are going well, you evolve, the situation to a certain point, but then it inevitably hits that wall where then they get scared, then they pull out, then they self-sabotage and they kind of tear down what you've built. And it may be something where, in that context, it speaks of very fear-based energies within, that this isn't necessarily nefariousness on their part. It's just like a lack within or some kind of wound associated with love that they need to kind of go to their separate corner and heal and figure out. And your response may very much kind of trigger that, awaken that of kind of like, wow, I didn't get what I wanted. Here's this tower moment. Now I'm forced to sort of sit and self-reflect. And so for some people, this is just kind of, it's a breaking point for, possible change in situation further down the road after both of you have had the opportunity to kind of go within and do some true healing, some true growth, some true personal evolution, but sort of in the energy and the dynamic as it is right now, it's almost like it's not sustainable in the long term. It's not healthy in the long term. You know which direction to move or kind of what's in your best interest. And it's really sort of the choice of your own kind of well-being, love of self, higher potential for you, or continuing to sort of participate in this where you're holding a lot of the burden, where it brings a lot of pain and disappointment and confusion to you and to your life. So it's actually, as much as this is for kind of a very select or sort of a very linear group of individuals, this isn't going to resonate with everybody's situation. It overall is a very empowering energy here. Just the differences in these two energies, it's like whoever this is that's approaching, they're operating at a very low vibration. There's wounding, there's fear, there's patternings, and your energy is already kind of elevated, is a step above that. You see the bigger picture. You see through the smoke and mirrors, to where it's kind of like, whatever it is that they say, whatever they kind of try to bring back around, even if it's something that you've been waiting to hear this, you've been wanting to hear this, it gets you every time. There's something within that is kind of, your sights are set in a different direction, or you're ready to take that leap of faith to really break away from this situation for good or for the first time. In whatever case, good for you. Congratulations for you. That's definitely this overall, as much as this is kind of like a heavy energy, there's really a lot of hope here of somebody kind of, you, the viewer, choosing yourself, choosing love of self as kind of the core foundation upon which healthy circumstances are built, and really recognizing your innate value, your innate worth, that you're deserving of so much more than whatever this circumstance looks like, whatever those details are, whatever has left you hanging, left you uncertain, left you hopeful, only to kind of get those hopes sort of brought to the ground. That it's the idea of transcending beyond that, ascending, awakening, raising that value, raising that self-esteem, raising kind of what you're willing to sort of tolerate or entertain or allow into your life. So it speaks to personal growth on your part of a very profound and expansive level. It's the idea of this situation, however this plays out, and your action to kind of choose a different path. It opens up so much more for you in terms of the ability to cultivate a healthier relationship with self, to do some very profound healing work that you may already be underway with, and to kind of provide some sort of like a milestone or a victory that your work has not been in vain, because you've been able to sort of cut free of this situation that has been, dragging you back in, maybe round and round for a while. Or it opens the door to sort of, okay, I don't have so much of my energy kind of embroiled in this sense of uncertainty, kind of dancing around, not really sure what to expect long term with this individual. Now that focus can go on self, can go on healing, can go on kind of nourishing you, that you have a lot of love to give. And in this situation, it is best served by pouring into you rather than continuing to pour into this situation. So again, congratulations to you. Excellent job. And as difficult as that might be, as frustrating or as triggering as that might be, to kind of break free from something that almost feels like a trauma bond in and of itself, healing is possible. Feeling better within you is possible. A healthy and reciprocal partnership is possible for you in the future. And so it's a very bold and brave step to sort of break free from things which, we get very entangled in for quite some time. And it can feel comfortable. It can feel predictable, even as much as it's uncomfortable, as much as it's not ideal. And so, I just want to take a moment to really honor that and recognize that, how brave you are for really sort of choosing you, recognizing your value and worth, and saying no more of whatever this is. Like, I deserve better. I'm worth so much more than being an option, than being somebody that's kind of, kept on the wings, or is like a backup plan, or, is juggled, is not valued, is not treated right, is deceived or lied to, or, whatever, or there's infidelity, like whatever that looks like, whatever that kind of circumstance is, this energy really speaks to sort of you, the viewer, transcending beyond this. And so that in and of itself is actually, the most beautiful love story, is kind of, the love that is truly unconditional, is the love for self. And so it's a beautiful foundation to be able to kind of pivot into these endless possibilities of new horizons for yourself in a lot of ways. So congratulations, as much as this feels to be a very long and kind of difficult and arduous cycle. Anything that's resonating as far as like, yeah, I need to break free. I know I've cut this person off. When they come back around, there's already kind of the plan waiting, there's the speech waiting, or the silence, which speaks volumes, kind of waiting for them. That in and of itself is just, it's an act of profound courage, and it's something that you should definitely take a moment to congratulate yourself for, and actually more than just a moment, keep reminding yourself of that, as difficult as that kind of healing and growth process can be. It's important to really recognize the small victories that we have in these processes of kind of wanting and making better for ourselves, and sort of breaking free of limitations or toxicity. It's not an easy journey, but it's a very brave journey, very brave step that you're taking here by knowing that you deserve better, and kind of having actions that correspond with that. So I'm still going to pull some message cards and see what this person wants you to know from their higher self. So this can even be kind of like the ideal, if they got their act together, if they sort of, healed themselves, broke free of these toxicities. That's kind of the perspective of these energies and these message cards right here. This other stuff, it feels like someone very stuck in a low vibration, very, very attached to kind of the material. I almost want to say the 2D. So something, it doesn't feel like anyone that's acting with a lot of integrity, even if it's just where there's kind of been this non-committal energy, that it's a sense of that's not fair, and it's not fair to you, it's not fair to keep you hanging, to have you be uncertain. By this point in time, they're aware of a pattern as well, and so even if it's coming from a place of they're just afraid of commitment, that's not right, it's not fair to you, and so it almost represents something that's it's a lower echelon than just focused purely on kind of matters of the mundane, someone who's kind of really operating in sort of a lower vibration. So these messages are not coming from that perspective. It's kind of, it's that horizon, like if they were to wake up and sort of heal and grow and evolve, this is kind of these are the messages of like the ideal situation, that more balanced vibration of who they are, that it doesn't really feel like they're embodying at this point. Okay, and they say, I remember you. So there could definitely be a past life connection here, almost like some past life karma that the two of you have needed to sort of work out. The idea here about this cycle in some way that is playing out in this lifetime, this is not the first time you've done this dance with one another. This can really speak to a lot of unhealed wounds of lack or other lives that you've shared with one another where the love has not turned out right, or there's been some kind of loss that has kind of led to a soul scar where, and this feels to apply really mostly to sort of the group of individuals, or this is someone who's just very non-committal. They come in and things are good, and then they kind of pull the plug on the situation again, that there's some sort of, it's something almost beyond this lifetime that just deeply triggers them. The closer they get to you in the situation, the more it kind of brings up this unhealed fear, this very profound sense of loss from other lifetimes, that is kind of inhibiting them from sort of crossing that threshold into investing more or giving more of a high vibrational nature to this connection. They also say your beauty cascades over me. So this can tie into the idea that they almost feel that you're too good for them. A lot of self-sabotage may be going on in this situation. That can really speak to these actions that are very much based on lack, that it bespeaks some sort of void or a lack within themselves, that they are projecting that out onto you. They don't feel that they are worthy, that they match up, that they are adequate. And so it's almost like they are unconsciously kind of doing things that are seeking to sort of lower your vibration, getting you to kind of lower your standards, or a sense of almost when they're with you that it's kind of, there's a part of them that says, this isn't the room for you. This isn't the environment for you. This isn't the relationship for you. This person's too good for you. You're not good enough. And so it almost feels to be, again, like deep wounding they need to sort of work on within themselves to kind of build that healthy self-esteem, to be able to show up in a different way in dealing with people and romantic partners. They also say, don't think I don't care about you, because I really do. So they do have feelings for you. There is kind of a degree of love here, but this feels to be somebody that's really kind of trapped in a cycle of fear, a lot of wounding within themselves. So it's very difficult to kind of ground down that higher potential of, there are feelings. This could be something which could be really good. This would have what it takes. There's, as much as there's kind of this duplicity, they keep coming back around. They keep being drawn towards you. It feels like beyond just trying to play games. There is some sort of soul connection, or like a bond between the two of you. A sense of kind of their higher nature letting them know that this circumstance, if they were to work on sort of rising above their own limitations within self, would have the capability to become something very beautiful and very healthy. But there's a disconnect between them harnessing that, recognizing that potential, and aligning actions with that. They also say 1,000 lifetimes with you would never be enough. So that confirms that energy of a past life connection between the two of you. Or again, it's more than just you're breaking free. It feels like from a cycle with this person in this lifetime. This can be like multiple lifetimes, many different versions of the two of you that have been kind of doing this dance with one another. And so your actions, your kind of decision, for those of you that were, again, a very specific, this group is only going to resonate with a very specific kind of situation, a very particular segment of people watching this video. But your decision then to break free, it not only ends this cycle, it feels that it breaks the chains of like a karmic loop you two at the soul level have been playing out across many lifetimes. So it's very profound change. It is very possible then, with that being said, that, for a segment of this very specific segment of people, this boomerangs, your actions, your kind of altered response or reaction to this person this time around, when they come back around, it awakens them. It shakes something loose within them. It creates a tower moment. It activates a spiritual awakening. They may plunge into a dark night of the soul, not just because tangibly, materially, they're not allowed back into your world, into your reality, but energetically speaking, it's like you break the chain. You kind of set something in motion that changes events. It frees the two of you, energetically speaking, across many different timelines, space, dimension, and reality, and sort of the quantum effects upon that. It feels to be something that this decision is very crucial for each of you in terms of the opportunity for your own kind of growth, healing, and ascension. So you may actually liberate the two of you from some kind of heaviness or karma you've been carrying around, or again, something that really for some of you could spark a very profound change, the beginning of a very profound healing journey and change for this person that may lead to different results and a different energy further down the road. And they also say it's like we're star-crossed lovers. Will we ever make it work? So again, this idea of a lot of past life karma in here, a lot of wounding and triggering that's at play, trauma bonding, just all kind of subtlety and nuance here that really, it needs to be dealt with individually. It almost feels like, you've reached the end of the road. This is no longer sustainable. It's almost a thing where you can keep looping around again and again with this person, but for you, like that call of the muse and the endless possibilities, there's a part of you that is kind of calling for more, that has said enough is enough. You're worthy of more. You're deserving of more. You're no longer participating in this. And this person, they also recognize this as well. Even for the ones that are kind of, that are more on that side of the spectrum of a narcissist, there is a core component within them that recognizes this is a flaw. This is a fracture. It's almost something that is kind of, it's such self-deprecation that there's no choice but to just kind of feed into that, or they perceive there's no choice but to kind of feed into that. But there is a knowledge deep within of, this is not how people act. This is not, even if it comes from just what's presented on media, what's presented in movies, even the kind of most self-absorbed narcissist is still a person in the world, to where they have the ability to look around and recognize how I move through the world, the actions I take, the effect I have on other people. This is by no means ordinary ways of dealing with interpersonal relationships. This is by no means what is demonstrated or what is templated on a certain level as kind of healthy relationships, healthy relationship with self. There is that awareness, but it's covered, it's masked, it's buried by all of this other kind of wounding and sort of actions in the direction contrary of what would be kind of a healing process here. So it feels like there's a lot of subtlety and nuance to where time apart is whatever the outcome is ultimately in the situation. It's the idea of the stars are not aligned in the energies the two of you are in at this point for anything other than kind of just disappointment. So your decision to kind of follow that alignment, follow your true north in a different direction. This almost fulfills some sort of soul contract between the two of you, or releases the two of you from a certain degree of tangle or complication, or really just kind of gives this person, you take your power back from the situation, and this person then has the ability to kind of sit and reflect and make change or not make change. They also say, thank you for your beautiful presence in my life. So another reference to beauty here. And again, feelings of kind of lack, not feeling that they match up, that they're adequate. This may be somebody who feels very broken inside, and as a consequence, they sort of project that out. They feel very broken emotionally, and so they kind of, that's what they exude. That's what their actions sort of yield, is this idea of breaking very beautiful things. And it's this idea though that you sort of represent this very out of reach energy that for, some of you where this is just the fear of commitment, it's almost like they get that stamina, they get that momentum. I think I'm ready. And then it just hits a little too close to home. It hits a little too close to that kind of wounded or brokenness inside, that void within. And it's kind of like, okay, if I let this person in deeper, if they see, what are they going to find other than just kind of vacuousness or a bottomless cup, in a sense, or just an inability to really value and cherish kind of the true quality and nature of who they are as a person or what they have to give. And they also say, I feel like I've been missing you my whole life. You're my lost paradise. So another confirmation there of, this past life energy deeply entrenched and entangled with one another. And so, regardless of kind of what this person chooses to do, if they heal, if they grow, or they evolve, or this is kind of the end of the road for the two of you, it feels like overall this represents, it's a very sort of like compacted group of people that are going to resonate with this relative to people who are usually watching videos I put out. I think, I'm pretty sure. But you know, this feels a lot more specific circumstances than typical kind of pick a cards, which tend to be a little more general. Even though there's specific details, they kind of cover a wider sort of range of individuals or details or circumstances. But for those who are kind of really resonating with this, that are still here in this group all the way to the end, that haven't been like, this doesn't resonate with me, and have clicked off the video or have gone to another pile. It's an important emphasis here that this action, this event of kind of this person coming back around and you choosing another path, it frees you from some kind of loop or some kind of karmic pattern that you've been in this lifetime. But more than that, it frees the two of you and this individual at a soul level. Regardless of what they choose to do with that liberation, you do have control over sort of what you do with this process of freeing. That it ends, it concludes, it breaks away of a heaviness or a toxicity that through many different lifetimes you've been kind of going round and round with one another. So as much as this is like a subtle and nuanced group, it also almost has kind of the biggest implication that this is kind of beyond lifetimes here, that this seemingly small act of I want better, I choose better for myself in the here and now, I deserve more than this, on a grand soul level, the grand soul scheme, it changes things for you very profoundly in terms of this lifetime, lifetimes to come. This is like big work. Again, really congratulate yourself for this. This is the ripple effect is far beyond just these circumstances with this individual. The healing path, picking up the pieces, putting yourself together in a different way as a result of sort of extracting from this, it changes a lot for you. It's not just, okay, I recover from that situation, but it's almost like a rebirth, like more of a freed version of you then gets to walk through the world. Something that your souls may have set out to accomplish with one another, like definitely a karmic relationship here. You've had this soul contract. These are the complications. Somebody's going to have to break us free from this, and you are that liberator for yourself and for the two of you in this situation. So I'm going to get some initials. This can be a first, middle, or last name if you or this person, or it could spell something out, just whatever resonates for you. We've got F, V, K, O, L, U, T, W, C, Q, P, A, Z, C, N, S, H, D, and N. So those are your messages. I hope that they resonated with you and that you enjoyed the reading. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, or share. If you'd like a personal reading, I offer them through my Etsy shop, and there's a link in the description box of the video for that. I offer a variety of pre-recorded video readings, written readings, and channeled letters. Turnaround time on everything is 5 to 7 days from the time of purchase. I also sell handmade jewelry, dream catchers, and sun catchers if you're interested in checking any of those out as well. And I've launched a second channel here on YouTube, which is called Lady of the Dawn Tarot. There's a link in the description box as well as in the channel section of my page for that. The format over there consists of readings related to topics other than love and romance. So if you're looking for something a little different from me, that is the place to find it. I thank you for your support there as well as for your continued support here on this channel. I hope to see you again in another reading. Please take care and be well.